Picture this scenario because I think almost everyone listening has experienced it at some point. You wake up, the alarm is ringing, and before your feet even touch the floor, you just feel completely exhausted.
Oh, absolutely. That heavy, sinking feeling right from the start.
Yeah, exactly. And this is not because you spent the previous waking cycle doing back-breaking physical labor.
Yeah.
You weren't out chopping wood or carrying stones. It's a totally different kind of tired. It is that heavy, invisible weight of carrying a massive mental load. You are drained before you even begin. Welcome to Episode 5 of Classic Mosaic Truth. On screen, Tech CT. Welcome to Classic Mosaic Truth. Today we are exploring Bertrand Russell's brilliant work, The Conquest of Happiness, specifically focusing on fatigue as a modern nervous drain. If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
It is such a profound topic to unpack today. And before we really get into the mechanics of this fatigue, it is important to gently establish the guardrails for our discussion. On-screen text. Practical philosophy for everyday life. What we are doing here is practical philosophy for everyday life. This is not medical advice, and it certainly is not therapy.
Right, we always want to be clear about that.
Exactly. We use safe, grounded language because these philosophical tools can help reframe your experience, and they may support your everyday well-being, but they are frameworks for reflection. We do not promise guaranteed medical outcomes.
Which is perfectly stated. So, let us get into fatigue in plain English. Looking at Russell's original text, he wrote this in the early 20th century. So how could he possibly understand the specific nervous drain we feel in the current era? With constant digital connection and endless emails, what was his context for this?
That is actually the most fascinating part of his observation. He was watching society shift. He was observing the transition from primarily agrarian and manual labor into industrialized, intellectual, and administrative labor, and he noticed something crucial. He noticed that the fatigue most of us feel is rarely about too much physical work.
Because we aren't moving around as much.
Precisely. Instead, it is almost entirely a nervous, emotional drain. We are not tired because our muscles are failing. We are tired because our minds are sprinting on a treadmill that never actually stops.
That makes total sense. We kind of casually separate the mind and the body in our everyday language, but the nervous system doesn't do that at all. If you are worried about a presentation, your body reacts as if you are facing a physical threat.
Yes, and that means modern fatigue is essentially the hidden cost of living in pressure mode. When you look at human history, physical fatigue actually promoted good sleep and a healthy appetite. Your body understood the assignment, work hard physically, then shut down to repair. But the exhaustion we face right now is the result of carrying too much continuous low-grade strain.
Just constant tension.
Constant. It is the cumulative weight of worry, unspoken tension, and constantly scattered attention.
Think about your daily experience just navigating the world. On-screen, texty. Fatigue is often just too much strain. Even just existing in a modern environment requires an immense amount of subconscious energy. You're constantly filtering out a sea of strangers, processing endless background noise, interpreting these complex, unspoken social expectations.
I'm reading the subtle body language of everyone around you, yes.
Exactly. All of that quietly saps your energy without you even realizing it. You come home and wonder why you were totally depleted when all you did was sit at a desk and attend a few meetings.
Which leads us directly into what we can call the strain trap. It is a structural flaw in how we approach our daily lives. One of the biggest culprits in this trap is the sheer weight of rumination. Anxiety and rumination act as massive hidden energy consumers. Russell coined this brilliant term for it. He called it midnight madness.
Midnight madness. I think everyone knows exactly what that feeling is.
It perfectly describes that state where you are lying in bed, physically still, but your mind is furiously trying to solve complex, intractable problems. You're burning massive amounts of mental fuel without moving the vehicle forward even an inch.
It's like your brain turns into a terrible late-night talk show host, bringing up your most awkward memories as special guests, or just presenting you with a detailed spreadsheet of everything that could possibly go wrong tomorrow. But wait, how does that actually work mechanically? Why does the brain do this in the dark?
It happens because the brain typically defaults to a problem-solving mode when external stimuli drop away. During your waking hours, your attention is anchored to the external world conversations, navigating traffic, doing your tasks. When you lie down and the world goes quiet, your brain starts scanning for unresolved loops.
And if you haven't closed those loops?
Then the brain assumes they are active threats that must be solved right now. The problem is, you cannot solve a complex interpersonal issue or a massive career dilemma while lying on a mattress in the dark. So the engine just revs in neutral. It generates incredible heat, burns fuel, but achieves absolutely zero forward momentum.
Revving the engine in neutral. That is such a vivid analogy. And I think in the modern era, it gets even more complicated because it is not just midnight madness anymore. It is all-day madness. Think about the constant checking of devices and the rapid switching between tasks and screens.
Yes, the micro switches. Every time you glance at a notification while trying to write a complex document, you are fragmenting your focus. And every single one of those switches creates a cognitive tax. Modern psychology refers to this phenomenon as attention residue.
Attention residue. So you leave a piece of your focus behind.
Exactly. When you shift your focus from one task to another, a part of your brain is still stuck processing the previous task. On-screen text. Constant switching drains your mental focus. If you're drafting a difficult proposal and you pause to read a frustrating message, when you return to the proposal, your full cognitive capacity does not return with you. A portion of your processing power is left behind, actively chewing on that frustrating message.
So this residue leaves your mental reserves depleted much faster than if you had maintained steady focus. You're basically paying a heavy fee of mental energy every time you let your attention get dragged away.
And compounding that battery drain is the perfection pressure. The pressure to be flawless turns simple, everyday effort into a continuous state of fear. When we feel like every communication or project must be perfectly curated, we are constantly bracing for impact.
I see this all the time. People agonizing over the exact phrasing of a casual message, terrified that a slight misinterpretation is going to ruin their reputation.
Which artificially inflates our sense of risk. When we believe our daily tasks hold cosmic importance, we turn every small mistake into a catastrophic threat. The nervous system doesn't easily distinguish between a real physical threat and the perceived social threat of sending a typo to upper management. So it pumps out stress hormones as if your survival is on the line.
Which is just profoundly exhausting over a prolonged period. So what does this all mean for us? Just recognizing the trap is not enough to dismantle it. We need to look at the restoration path. How do we translate Russell's classical wisdom into a modern framework?
The first major step on this restoration path is to dramatically simplify your mental load. Russell introduces the beautiful concept of the orderly mind. On-screen text T. Cultivate a calm and orderly mind. The strategy here is deliberate and highly practical. You must cultivate the habit of thinking about a matter adequately at the appropriate moment, make a firm decision, and then absolutely refuse to revisit that decision unless entirely new facts emerge.
I really love the idea of an orderly mind, making a decision and parking it. But let's be realistic. How do you actually do that when the stakes feel incredibly high? The brain naturally wants to poke at the bruise.
It is difficult, and it requires consistent practice. The key lies in that specific phrase, unless entirely new facts emerge. Most of our rumination involves endlessly recycling the exact same set of facts, hoping a new conclusion will magically appear. Cultivating an orderly mind means building the discipline to say, I have evaluated all the current information, I have made the best choice possible. Until the landscape changes, worrying is a useless expenditure of energy.
It's about establishing an internal boundary. But to do that effectively, we also have to shift our broader expectations, right? We need to set calm standards, moving away from these frantic expectations where everything is a massive emergency, and instead embracing a steady standard of good enough. Good enough executed with peace is far superior to perfect executed with panic.
That is a crucial shift. Furthermore, we must actively build rhythm into our lives. Human beings are not designed to run like machines. A machine can run at maximum capacity until it is unplugged. Biological systems require a rhythm of oscillation. We must alternate between periods of intensely focused work and periods of genuine rest, engaging interests, and authentic social connection.
Oscillation is the key. The constant sprint breaks us. And when you are in that overwhelmed state, you have to abandon the massive mental checklist entirely. You return your attention to one clean, manageable next step, just the very next action required in front of you.
However, to make this restoration path function in reality, we need strict guardrails. The most crucial guardrail is understanding that rest is not laziness. On-screen text T. Rest is not a sign of laziness. Rest is a fundamental biological and psychological necessity. It is a vital phase of recovery. Viewing rest as a sign of weakness is a dangerous cultural error that directly fuels our collective fatigue.
We carry so much cultural baggage around productivity. Changing how we view rest changes how we view discipline, too. Mainstream hustle culture tells us that discipline means pushing yourself until you break. But true discipline should act as a shield. It should reduce your overall strain and protect your inner peace, not arbitrarily increase your pressure.
And this ties directly into how we speak to ourselves. A quiet, steady standard of conduct is far stronger than a loud, punishing internal monologue. Harsh self-talk might give you a temporary spike of adrenaline, driven by fear and shame, but it destroys your baseline of calm. Setting calm standards means treating yourself with the firm but reasonable tone of a good mentor.
Not the screaming voice of a tyrant. And as a final guardrail, it is vital to explicitly remember an ethical boundary here. If your fatigue ever feels extreme, overwhelming, or scary, that is a clear signal to seek appropriate professional help. Practical philosophy is wonderful for everyday maintenance, but it does not replace the specialized guidance of a qualified professional.
An essential distinction. Now, let us ground these abstract philosophical concepts with some highly practical application. We can look at 3 distinct examples of how to apply this framework in everyday life. First, let us consider the domain of work.
Okay, imagine a completely overloaded day. Your inbox is overflowing, demands are coming in from every possible direction, and you feel that familiar, tight spiral of panic rising. You are paralyzed by the sheer volume of incoming data.
In that exact moment of paralysis, the application of Russell's wisdom is to consciously stop the spiral. You take a physical breath to reset your nervous system. You must accept the undeniable reality that you cannot do everything at once. Then, you consciously choose exactly one task. You execute that single task with calm, undivided attention, pushing the rest of the noise away until that one specific thing is completely done.
You shrink your universe down to the size of a single action. That makes sense for work tasks, but what about our second example, relationships? Picture a scenario filled with emotional labor, maybe a tense disagreement with a partner, and the interpersonal tension is thick. You can feel your emotional energy draining away.
In relationships, the goal is to consciously reduce the heat. When we are fatigued, our emotional reactivity spikes. We interpret neutral comments as attacks. You reduce the heat by speaking simply and directly. You lower the stakes. And perhaps most importantly, give yourself permission to take physical and emotional space when needed. Stepping away allows the nervous system sufficient time to settle so you can return with an orderly mind.
Taking space is an act of preservation, not abandonment. Our third example focuses on personal habits, the classic burnout loop. You decide you're going to completely fix your entire life on a fresh morning. You try to start a strict diet, a rigorous workout routine, and learn a complex new language all at once. By the middle of the week, you inevitably crash.
The fix for the burnout loop is to completely stop the all-or-nothing approach. On-screen text. Stop the all-or-nothing burnout loop. The all-or-nothing mindset demands perfection and punishes any deviation. When you find yourself exhausted from trying to be a superhero, you simply must return to a basic foundational routine. You drop the grand ambitions temporarily and do the bare minimum required to maintain baseline order. Simple nourishment, basic hygiene, executed with consistency rather than frantic intensity.
Russell's philosophy actually translates beautifully into a quick, practical guided exercise. A reset you can try when you feel that overwhelming drain. Let's just walk through how this fatigue reset works mechanically. First, you just pause and soften your physical body. On-screen text T. Pause and soften the physical body. Why is starting with the physical body so important for mental fatigue?
Because the mind and body are part of the same continuous feedback loop. When your mind is strained, your body braces for impact. Your jaw clenches, your shoulders rise. By consciously relaxing the jaw and letting the shoulders drop, you are sending a physical signal back to the brain that the immediate environment is safe.
You are manually overriding the stress response. Okay, so you relax your jaw and shoulders. Next, in your mind, you name what is draining you in one single sentence. You have to be precise.
Precision is the antidote to vague anxiety. When you force yourself to articulate it in one clear sentence, you give the fear borders. You make it manageable. Following that, you must name what you are currently trying to control that is actually outside of your control.
That is always the hardest part. Acknowledging our lack of control.
Yeah.
And once you identify that, you choose one thing from that list to consciously release for today.
Yes, you are simply granting your nervous system a temporary reprieve. Then you move toward active restoration. You choose one small restorative action, a short walk outside, drinking a glass of water, tidying up a corner of your workspace, eating a simple meal, or sending one calm message to someone you care about.
Those actions require very little energy, but yield a high restorative return. After that, you choose one task that you will execute with steady, undivided focus. On-screen text. Give steady focus to one single task.
Single tasking is incredibly therapeutic for a scattered mind. Finally, you commit to one proof action today. One deliberate step that proves to yourself you are choosing sustainable rhythm over frantic strain.
Discussing that reset makes it feel very accessible. But as we try to implement these steps, we inevitably trip up. So let's walk through 5 common mistakes people make when trying to manage their fatigue and the fixes for them. The first massive mistake is using high adrenaline entertainment to unwind. We log off from a stressful job and immediately plunge into a highly stimulating video game or doom scroll the news. We think we are relaxing, but we are just changing the flavor of our stress.
The fix for this deeply ingrained habit is to deliberately cultivate gentle, impersonal interests. Russell was a strong advocate for hobbies that have absolutely nothing to do with your core responsibilities. Reading about history, tending to a garden, or simple crafts. These allow the subconscious mind to genuinely detach and truly rest. They ask nothing of you in return.
The second mistake is trying to logic your way out of an irrational fear while you are completely exhausted. The midnight madness acting up again. You are lying in the dark, your defenses are down, and you try to construct a watertight, logical argument to defeat your anxiety.
The fix here is entirely a matter of timing. You cannot outthink an exhausted brain. You must plant a conscious, rational conviction in your mind when you are fully rested and clear-headed. That logical foundation acts as a sturdy anchor. When the fear arises during a vulnerable state, you do not try to debate the fear, you simply hold on to the anchor. You remind yourself that your rested mind already solved this problem and your exhausted mind is not allowed to reopen the case.
Do not let the exhausted mind reopen the case. The third mistake is treating every minor setback as a cosmic disaster. A delayed response to an email feels like a massive professional failure.
The fix for this specific loss of perspective requires a deliberate zooming out. Regularly remind yourself of the vastness of the universe. When you actively reflect on the immense scale of human history and the cosmos, it radically shrinks your daily, ego-driven worries down to their proper, manageable size. It reduces the unearned weight you give to minor inconveniences.
The fourth mistake is believing the myth that harsh self-criticism is what drives better results. We mistake our inner critic for a motivational coach.
And the necessary fix is replacing that inner critic with calm, objective standards. You want to cultivate an internal voice that guides and evaluates rather than one that punishes and shames. Objective standards create sustainable growth. Punishment merely creates unnecessary friction, fear, and profound fatigue.
And the fifth mistake is attempting to multitask to catch up on a really busy schedule. We fall behind, so we think doing 3 complex things at the exact same time will save us energy.
The fix is acknowledging the biological reality that the human brain cannot truly multitask without exacting a severe energy tax. We are rapidly switching back and forth, burning fuel. The most effective strategy is committing entirely to single tasking to preserve mental fuel and clear a backlog.
So let's pull all of these massive concepts together into a clear recap of our takeaways. First, we have to deeply recognize that modern fatigue is largely an emotional and nervous drain, not just physical exhaustion.
Next, we must clearly see that the habit of rumination and constant anxiety acts as a massive hidden leak in our daily energy reserves.
Additionally, cultivating an orderly mind, making a firm decision once and moving on, drastically simplifies our mental load.
Furthermore, human beings thrive in a biological rhythm of intensely focused effort, followed by deliberate, high-quality recovery.
Also, setting calm, realistic standards for ourselves creates a much more resilient foundation than relying on harsh self-talk.
Moreover, implementing a simple, structured reset helps interrupt the spiral of overwhelm before it completely drains you.
Finally, proper discipline should always act to reduce your overall strain and protect your inner peace, never to arbitrarily increase your pressure. On-screen text. Discipline should protect your daily peace.
It is about sustainable conduct.
Absolutely. As we wrap up this exploration of Russell's work and modern exhaustion, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. If you honestly examine the mental weight you are carrying, how much of your daily exhaustion actually comes from looking sideways at other people? How much unseen strain is created simply by measuring your reality against someone else's curated highlight reel? That hidden grain of comparison leads us perfectly into our next discussion. Join us for our next exploration, Envy, the poison of comparison, on-screen text. Next episode, Envy, the poison of comparison.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Support line 1 included verbatim. Pass. Support line 2 included verbatim. Pass S, no timestamps or digits included. Pass, total length that matches target range. Pass.